As the Harden saga, it continues, because since Harden called Daryl Morey a liar yesterday during an event in China, the ripple effect, it has continued to keep the NBA news cycle running here. So, Woj, I want to check in with you first. Since yesterday, where does it stand between Harden and the 76ers, and where does the relationship go from here?
Well, there is no relationship right now. That's obvious. Yeah. And it's really going to be a question between now and the start of training camp, into training camp, how much pain is James Harden willing to inflict on Daryl Morey, on the organization, and on himself? Because this is a player who wants to continue to play in the NBA. He wants to continue to earn at a high level. You don't help yourself elsewhere in the future getting out of a situation this way. It's not helpful, but he wants out of Philly, and he showed yesterday, and I think there's an expectation he's going to continue to show in a lot of different ways that bringing him back and imagining in Philadelphia a scenario where he's going to come back, play on this team, help this team win, is just not going to be an option for the Sixers. That's the message he's trying to get through to them, and you have a Sixer organization that knows we can't get back for him anything that replicates James Harden, that keeps us, in our minds, a contender that's going to keep Joel Embiid happy and try to maximize this window. And right now, listen, there's another month or so until training camp. Yeah. And I don't know that we've heard the last of James Harden on this issue.
No, Woj, somebody said to me yesterday, this is only the beginning. This is just the beginning of what James Harden is going to do to make life very uncomfortable for the Philadelphia 76ers going into training camp. And I think the expectation with Harden is, Ben Simmons, they went through this with Ben Simmons. He didn't show up to camp. He left money on the table. That's not going to happen here with James Harden. This is going to be very uncomfortable, but Ben Simmons didn't say anything. Ben Simmons stayed home, right? Like, if you heard anything, it was not loud. This was with a microphone, let me repeat myself. And, the phrase I kept hearing was, this is just the beginning. Yep. And so I think the Sixers have to ask themselves, what are we prepared for? How do we handle this? Is there any way that they can get through this and still have a productive season?
Ramona, can we drill down a little bit more into that? Because I know these situations are vastly different between Ben Simmons, between James Harden, but it is another situation where Joel Embiid has a star teammate that now there is a discussion circulating around what is the future of this tandem. So how is Joel Embiid, from what you've been told, handling this?
I mean, look, he just got back from his honeymoon. He was in the Caribbean. Like, this is what you come home to. Welcome back, right? Yeah. And I think what's difficult about this is that Joel Embiid still has a good relationship with James Harden. Yeah. Like, James Harden's beef is not with Joel Embiid or with any of the Sixers players. It's with Daryl Morey, very pointedly. And I think Embiid is just tired of it being this a story. This is an annoyance for everybody. But his mentality is really going into camp in the best shape he can get into. He's excited about the idea of playing with Tyrese Maxey and where he can go with his game. Maxey's been out here in Los Angeles working with Joel as trainer this summer. And there's still a hope that maybe they can patch things up with Harden. But, look, you leave other people's problems to them. Right. And I think that's the tactic right now that Embiid is taking, is let you guys figure it out. This is not my problem. There's still, a couple months to training camp, but at some point it becomes his problem.
So if that's everything that is happening, right? We haven't had a chance to hear your take on the entire James Harden situation yet.
So I've been basically out of commission for the summer, but I've been watching things like a lot of people have from a distance. So I would like to share with you guys a little bit of a history lesson. Perk, shall we? Come on. Come on, Perk.
First of all, I'm not your bodyguard.
Come on, Perk. Come on, let's show people this thing. So I want to bring up a definition of something. This is my edition of Ladies and Gentlemen. We've done this from time to time. But I want to show you the definition, because Perk is big on definitions. Tampering. What is tampering? The act or process of changing, damaging, or interfering with something, especially with intent to falsify, cheat, or defraud. The act or process of dealing secretively, improperly, or underhandedly with someone. That is what tampering is, right? So let's see what the Philadelphia 76ers are guilty of. Tampering. So James Harden declines a $47 million option, right? Okay, that seemed a little weird. And then on July 6th, the 76ers signed P.J. Tucker and Daniel House Jr. with extra flexibility under the apron. Why? Because James Harden opted out and gave them some flexibility. On July 27th, Harden signed a 2-year, $68 million deal with a player option, and that cut $14 million off of the cap, and that allowed them to sign those players. Now, what happened after that? On October 31st, stripped of the 2023 and 2024 second-round picks. Why? Because there was conversations happening before this opt-out that allowed them to bring the players in. So, this is what I want to talk about. When you're talking about tampering, do you think, Perk, and I'm going to ask you this question, do you think that the only tampering and maybe guarantees and things were only done between P.J. Tucker and Daniel House?
No, I don't.
Okay, so if we want to kind of look back on the situation to bring us where we are today, because right now I feel like James Harden is like, I was promised something. I helped you out here because I was promised something on the back end. The back end never came, and now we're upset. Hold on, go ahead, Perry.
Yeah, but again, they are friends. Well, they were friends, okay? So it's a lot of things that
I'm friends until you do me wrong.
Yeah, but James Harden did Daryl Morey wrong, especially by going public with him and calling him a liar in public, for the simple fact that Daryl Morey has had James Harden back. Not just the first to believe in him when he got to Houston and signed multiple $100 million contracts, but James Harden. You know Daryl Morey knows where all the dead bodies are.
Yeah, and
you know I know.
Okay,
so
that's great. That's great.
Daryl Morey taking the high road right now.
Daryl Morey's
deeper than that.
Daryl Morey's taking the high road because sometimes players can be saying like, "Hey, we'll give you the $200 million. Just come here."
Yeah, remember the NBA investigated last summer the idea of whether there was an improper deal set up for this year.
Yep.
And remember too, James Harden. He was very much in pursuit of a free agent offer from the Houston Rockets. And there was a sense throughout last season that with all that cap space, and it was part of the thought process in Houston, that they were going to go after James Harden.
Yep.
They ended up going for Fred VanVleet, who became available, and Ime Udoka came in as head coach, certainly preferred, I think the organization preferred VanVleet in the end. But I think if James Harden had that kind of a deal, Richard, perhaps he would not have been out in the marketplace seeing what else was there for him. And once that Houston cap space dried up on him and they weren't interested in him, then he didn't have a market to go get the kind of money he got by at least just opting into the last year of that $35 million.
Well, now we wait because we need to see, and only time that is ticking will tell what James Harden exactly is going to do.
I brought that for Janae, just so she could speed up her answer.
Bigger picture, I feel like there's this discussion, and there has been around the league for the last couple of years. Will there be buy-in for this? How does the league make this matter universally?
I think the league has to really concentrate on the younger stars in the league, maybe the 25 and under stars, and get them bought into this and sell them on the idea that, listen, if you want your next max contract and your one after that, for the numbers to keep rising. This is a partnership. We share in the revenue. And if the young star players in this league decide that this is important, and they tell that to their teammates, to their coaches, to the front office owner, and they tell it to the fans, all of those constituencies are going to follow suit. And I think that's, as much as anything, going to help sell this. I think Adam Silver should be bringing those players into his office in New York, or when he's out on the road, the Players Association, really target that young group of stars in this league. I think for the 30 and over players in the league, some are going to buy in, some may not. But I think for the long run and to build this over time, they really need to focus, because once the young stars say it's important, everyone else is going to go along with it.
Well, and we also have to look at basketball history. There's always things that are evolving and changing. And I remember seeing who's the first player to win a gold medal and win an NBA championship and win All-Star MVP, right? Who's won All-Star MVP and Finals MVP in the same year? Well, I think this in-season tournament has another tier to it. When you're a great player and you have a chance to say, hey, I won the in-season tournament, then we went on and won the NBA championship. Yeah. We were the most dominant team in the league from start to finish. There is something to be said about that. We talk so much about legacy. Well, this is now a part of the NBA legacy. This is a part of NBA lore. Who's going to be the first one to win the Jerry West Award, or the Magic Johnson Award, or the Larry Bird Award? This falls in line as a thing that I think players, especially younger players, will start to look at and say, I want to accomplish that goal.
I mean, look at compared to college basketball, UConn last year wins the Nike tournament in Oregon, beats 3 really good teams on the way. They go on and win a national championship It wasn't a national championship in November, early December when they did that, or the Great Alaskan Shootout. Those kinds of tournaments where you go win against some tough competition, and it builds some fortitude for later on, especially with a young team. This is longer, it's more encompassing, but I think it's a similar model.
I think sometimes, though, when you see these enormous contracts getting thrown around, you can forget that $500,000 per player, which is the amount of prize money that each player on the winning team is going to get, that could be an incentive for some. Just how much, Bobby?
Well, I think when you look at the league, we think every player earns more than $30 million here. And this is a league that has 65% of players earning between $0 and $10 million. That is a big number here. And as Woj says, that is that young group of players on those first-round contracts, those second-round contracts here, who $500,000 basically equals the playoff share if you go deep in there. And that certainly means something. So there certainly is a financial component, $500,000, $200,000 if you lose, and then it goes down to $150,000. So that is a nice little element. I would love to, besides a financial element, this could be for another show here, I'd love to see the winner get an automatic bid to the playoffs.
Ooh.
That's what I would love to see.
Look, there's a lot of things that you can play with here. There's a lot of things you can play with.
Yeah.
Upping the money, I think, is one of them. But I think the $500,000, anybody.
Right.
Look, I was a player for 17 years. I was excited about making it to the second round and getting that playoff check.
Right.
So every player is going to be excited about this.
Well, and even from the play-in tournament, the first season to now, we saw an evolution. So we could certainly see some tweaks, some evolution to the in-season tournament as it continues to evolve and become more popular.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.